Welcome. In the Essential Math series, I've handpicked a few problems that I thought were quite interesting. And one reason why I thought they were interesting was the problems themselves were not conceptually difficult. However, the way the question was written could pose difficulty for some of you, and that might prevent you from solving the problem. So I've collected a handful of problems, so I'll walk through one at a time. And the first problem that we're going to look at is within the inequality domain. And in the problem, you're asked to determine the smallest possible value of y given a range of values for x. Okay, so what makes this particular problem easy, even though some of you might find it difficult, particularly when it comes to inequality, a great deal of students struggle with the concept. And in this particular case, what makes the problem very easy is because x can have value actually be equal to 1 or equal to 5. Okay, the less than or greater than, while it has some significance, what's more significant is the fact that x can be equal to 1 or it can be equal to 5. So if you choose the extreme, that'll make the problem much easier. So here's what I'm going to do. So if x is equal to 1, then y equals 25 minus 1 squared, which is 24. Clearly, that's not even an answer choice. So let's go to the other extreme. If x equals 5, then y equals 25 minus 5 squared, which is 0. That's an answer choice. So the correct answer is A. Now, this is one way of doing this problem, knowing that if you use an extreme in the case of an interval such as this one, that's easy. Let's say you get to this problem and you obviously can think along this line. An alternate way would be to actually use the answer choice to figure out what the value of x could have been. Now, since we've already solved the problem, if x equals 5, y equals 0, let's pick the y value to be 0, just to prove a point that sometimes you can use the answer choice itself to solve the problem. Knowing that y equals 0 implies 0 equals 25 minus x squared, which implies x squared equals 25. X can be plus or minus 5. Keep in mind, x cannot have a value that's negative because the lowest x can have is 1 and the highest x can have is 5. So negative 5 is not an option. Therefore, x can only be plus 5, which is what we precisely defined in the first version that we took. So you can choose to solve the problem in either of this way, depending on what your mindset is as you approach the problem. But there's definitely two ways to solve this particular problem. All right, so that's choice A is the answer. Moving on to the second problem on the screen, and that's part of the algebraic representation concept. The question asks you to determine the number of hours in terms of weeks and days. So essentially, you're asked to determine an expression. So what do we know about a day? A day has 24 hours. So D days should technically contain 24 D. I'm going to leave the hours outside the bracket simply because we can edit it out in the final version, because if you look at the answer choices, they don't have the letters H or S or hours. So we can edit that out later. Now, looking at this, we can clearly say A and D are not the right option. I don't know how you can get to 12 or 60, okay? That's not possible. So that leaves us with B and C. So what about a week? A week contains 7 days. Now the problems becomes much easier when you can convert this day into hours. Then it's basically a replica of what we did for the day. So a day contains 24 hours, right? So 7 days would contain 168 hours. So essentially 7 day is same as 168 hours. So W week should contain sorry, I'm having trouble here, with 168 W, and I'm going to leave the hours side. Okay, so now to sum up the expression, it'll be 24D plus 168 W hours. We can always edit out the hours just to make it look like how it appears on the screen. So the correct answer is C. You can actually try to figure out how you would get B. I'm not sure how you would get B 84W. Okay, so that's probably just a distractor, because when you have two 24Ds, I guess there's probably a way you can get the 84W. So with that said, these two problems, if you look at them, while the nature of the question itself poses some difficulty, the answer choices themselves are quite straightforward. However, the next few problems, reading and understanding the question takes a certain mindset, followed by understanding the answer choices themselves. So stay tuned for the remainder problems. Welcome back. The problem that we're about to solve is also part of the algebraic representation concept. The problem states the salesperson gets $280 per week plus a 5% commission on sales pertaining to the electronic equipment. Assuming if he sells D dollars worth of electronic equipment in 1 week, determine the algebraic expression that represents the amount of money the salesman would make in W weeks. There may be some of you that probably enjoys word problem like these, so you would probably have no problem solving it. While there's other end of the spectrum, there's quite a bit of you that probably don't like word problems that are twisty. This is one such problem. So I'll tell you some tips and tricks that you can always use when you encounter this type of problem, which makes your life very simple. What is that trick? Well, what if you can eliminate 2 choices out of the 4 right away? That way you're now fighting only 2 choices versus 4. So you're not congesting your brain with all sorts of thoughts, okay? So the basic salary of the person is $280. So we cannot modify that salary. Even if the salesman were to not make any sales at all a particular week, he gets to take home $280. So the basic salary cannot be manipulated directly through addition, subtraction, multiplication, division through a variable. So we know that the $280 should exist by itself because that's his basic pay, which means choice A and D are incorrect because 280 does not exist by itself. These are distractor choices, which makes you get confused in the process of trying to find an answer. So how do we go about solving it? So the basic pay is $280, right? That is basic, plus a 5% commission. You see, we're already starting to write our expression. You see, I did not write D, W, X, Y, Z, none of that. The basic pay is just $280, which leaves us with only B and C. So if we could figure out what is the remainder of this portion, then we have our expression. But that's where the problem gets a little tricky. So if you choose the approach, the person sells D dollars worth of an electronic equipment in 1 week. So he gets 5% commission on all sales, right? Whatever he sells, he gets 5% commission, assuming that 1 week, okay, he sold D dollars, right, worth of electronic equipments. So what is 5% of it? Times 5 over 100. So that's essentially same as writing 0.05 D, right? If you want, write it as dollars, it doesn't really matter. That's his commission, right? So if it is 1 week, so W weeks, I'm going to make a mistake, so I make you think. So you would end up with 0.05 D W dollars, right? You would simply add it to this one, right? We can eliminate the dollar for convenience. So essentially you would get 280 plus 0.05 DW. That looks right because that's exactly what choice B is. You are wrong. Why is it incorrect? Why can't we just do 1 week he makes 0.05 D dollars for W week? Simple, I'm going to add it to my 280. The problem with this is as weeks go by, the basic salary is not carried over. This is only applicable for 1 week because W then becomes 1, then this expression is applicable. But W weeks means plural, means as 7 weeks go by or 5 weeks go by, the person should continue to make the basic plus the commission. So this expression is incorrect because the basic salary is not carried over as the person go from week 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. So how do we resolve that? Well, you have your basic expression 280, and for 1 week, right, he makes 0.05 D dollars, right? Now this is for 1 week, right? How many will you make in W week? See, this little tweaking here makes a lot of difference. So W 280 plus 0.05 D. Now, the reason I made the mistake and then did the correct version is so you can see what is the logic here that distinguishes between choice B and C. We now know C is the correct answer because we've already eliminated A and D because they are incorrect, right? C is the correct answer. So I'll see you with the next problem.